welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA, District 5810. My name is Greg Tupper. Sitting across the table from me is the man they call Josey, Andrew Utz. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm great. And it's not just because you're here.
Oh, good.
But we have not one,
No?
but two very special guests joining us on today's podcast.
Who are they?
Me and you.
Oh.
Aside from that, though, also, we are joined in something that we just kind of planned on the fly and didn't really think was going to happen. We're joined by the original RYLA Dan crew.
Ooh.
It's John Warder and Tyler Criss. Yeah!
Wow. Well, thanks for having us. Let's just say we're not the original RYLA Dan crew. We gotta pay our dues to Jeff Egger.
Oh, you got it.
He was a part of the
Shout
RYLA
out
Dan
the
crew
OGs.
before he knew it was the RYLA Dan crew. But yes,
It's a pleasure to be
it
here.
is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for. You've got a very NPR voice.
That's
Because you said you just said you're like, well, thank you very much.
I gotta say, yeah, your charisma changed in a way I've never seen before.
It's like the red light goes on and suddenly the things everything changes for Tyler
You're
Criss.
looking live at Tyler Criss on the RYLACast. Sorry, I thought I had like a whole thing.
It's not live though.
No.
I want to be clear. This is recorded, so we can edit that.
Okay,
Greg,
good.
you've got headphones on. What do I sound like?
You sound like you.
Okay,
That's what you always sound
so
like.
not good for NPR, huh?
This is
You kind of walked right into that one.
I mean, there are some stations that I think your voice would play on. You know what I mean? Mostly ASMR stations.
All right. Hey,
Have you
that's
ever?
kind of big right
we're
now.
going to get into to your career here in a moment. Have you ever done an ASMR video?
Man.
What does ASMR stand for? Audio, sensory.
Audio, symmetry, mechanical rhythm.
You're listening to live coverage
have
of
told
me
us
looking this up.
anything, and we
ASMR,
would've believed.
Autonomous
That's what it is.
Sensory Meridian Response. You could have given me 100,000 guesses. I wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah.
Have you considered that as a career path?
I have not considered it as a career path. Have I considered it as a video? Yes, I have.
Okay.
One time at my previous job, we were going to do an ASMR for cats video. And we had a whole script written out. And it was like basically just like a bunch of little cat toys. And
What I love is that we are definitely going to request or recommend this podcast to like people who are unfamiliar with RYLA and unfamiliar with us, and they'll be like, "What nonsense am I listening to?"
There you go.
Anyway, thanks for joining us on the RYLAcast, the official podcast of Camp RYLA District 5810. Here in a minute, we're going to be talking with the aforementioned John Warder about his job, his RYLA story, all of his life. We're going to do a deep dive into John Warder's scene. But first, Josey. John Warder, you chose a word for us, right?
I did, per your instructions.
Don't tell him that. That ruins the.
Oh.
That ruins the.
But how would I have known to choose a word?
Well, I don't know. You might have just.
You're a listener. You're an avid
you're just
listener.
An avid
I
listener
do
of the
listen
podcast.
sometimes. I do listen on
That is
the occasion.
That is the nicest thing you've ever said to me. The word you chose was creativity. I think it's a pretty good word for you.
Well, thanks, man. Big surprise, you know.
Yeah, it was. You know.
I don't get it.
step out, John.
No, I mean I liked a lot of the words on that list. There was two that I was really debating. This is the one I went with. But,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
I like this word.
And so, as is tradition around here on the podcast, now Josey has to talk about creativity as it relates to leadership.
Oh.
And so here, with something to think about, everybody clear out. We're getting ISO. We're doing the ISO play, all right? He's the LeBron James of this podcast.
Oh, wow.
It's Andrew Josey Utz.
Well, thank you, Greg. Yeah, when I was preparing to... Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh. Was that your phone?
That was my phone. I leaned against it. And
Was that Siri?
that was Siri.
Siri just
Who's
made
gonna
an...
tell us about creativity. No, when I was thinking about the big segment for creativity, it didn't quite occur to me that I would have to do the segment with John Warder.
Oh, no.
here.
It's pressure.
Yeah. So, creativity.
Josey is sweating. Just...
Profusely.
We can get you some water.
It's like airplane. Yeah, I need to rehydrate. So nobody knows what it is. I'm just going to start it out. Is it a talent? Is it a skill? Technical skill? What is this creativity? It's kind of hard to define. I'm seeing a lot of like nods and just a blank stare.
I think you
from
have to.
Pepper.
Are you looking for a definition from us?
I think buddy.
Initially, I wasn't, but reading the room. So I'll give you a little bit more lead in. So this idea of creativity, I found it hard to quantify, and it means so many different things for so many different people. Like, for example, John's idea of creativity may not be my idea of creativity, and the same thing with Tyler and Greg. And so I've got a couple different words written down. But wanted to throw that out to you guys about what is creative. Is it a definable characteristic?
I get the feeling that it's something that everyone's born with a certain amount, some more than others, but then it's a matter of nurturing that into, like, you can ignore it and it'll just be that same amount, or you can grow it. It feels like a plant.
I think creativity is like an onion. You're absolutely right, Greg.
That's excellent.
It is like a plant.
It's like an onion.
It's layered, dude. I mean, at the root of all of us, we are created people. Whether you want to look at it from however you want to look at it, whether you believe in God or you don't, we were all created in some way, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the root of who we are.
Wow.
And we're all creating something constantly. You know, you're creating blood in your body. You know, whether you think you're creating or not, you are. You're creating some carbon dioxide right now.
Or creating podcasts.
You're creating a podcast. So, I mean, you're totally right, though, Josey. Like, there are a ton of different definitions for it, but I think it's just because there's so many different ways to look at it. So it is very layered. It can be something that, you know, you make a video, you make a podcast, or it can just literally be, you know, what you do at work, or a connection that you make with somebody. Like, you're creating a connection with a person, like a friendship or a relationship. Like, that's creating in a way. So it's there's a lot of levels to it.
It's like an onion.
It's like an onion.
I'm glad you answered that way. So I hear words like, it is a talent, but it also can be a developable skill, and it has layers, and maybe you don't know all of the layers to begin with. It's like a never-ending onion, if you will. So I think creativity and leadership is very important. And I do believe that it's you're born with a certain amount, and if that amount is none, you can still develop creativity over time. I'm doing a lot of motions with my hands.
Yeah, I like that.
But people on
the problem is this is an audio medium.
Yeah, so I'll just keep doing
that's good
things with my hands.
You're doing great.
And there's a lot of nodding going.
There's a lot of nodding. Yes.
So I wrote down Forbes article because a lot of times on these podcasts, Greg will throw out, like, I was reading the Harvard Business Review, and I was like, man,
dude, don't ruin the next podcast.
I just read the nutrition facts on Frosted Flakes. So I Googled Forbes article, but I didn't actually cite my sources for where I got this creativity. So we're just going to go with what said by me, also Michael Scott.
Love it.
So in leadership, if you want to end somewhere different, you've got to do something different, and that is where creativity starts. So in order to if you're maybe listening to this podcast and kind of freaking out, like, I'm not a creative person, oh my gosh, what do I do, and just do something different. Just jump out of your normal routine and just try something new. And if you think about how many things that we do every day that we would do differently when forced to do that. I listened to a podcast, and they had Tim Harford on, who's an economist from the UK, and he said he cited
an international economist.
Wow.
He highfalutin podcast you're listening to.
I'm just throwing out big words to make it sound like I got a lot behind this creativity thing. And he cited there was an issue on the subway that shut down the subway for a 48-hour period and forced commuters to go a different route. Well, a not so insignificant minority, when the subway was opened, decided to stay on that other route that they had chosen for whatever reason. Maybe it was quicker for them, better, more relaxing, and that kind of launched into the idea of how much stuff do we do on a daily basis just because it's what we've always done.
Oh my gosh.
And,
yes.
Yeah. And
like my whole day.
Right. And you don't really know that there's a different way until you're forced to think that way. So in order to foster creativity, I challenge people to force themselves out. Don't wait for an outside kind of third party to force you to think a different way. We watched that video, I think we still do at camp, where it's like a 2.5-minute video about the degree of water. Water doesn't boil at 211, but it boils at 212. That 1 degree, that one little difference. So that's what I think is really necessary in developing your leadership skills in this creativity sphere, is just trying to do something different. So I challenge, in wrapping up this big segment, everybody to just do something a little different. Knock yourself out of the routine.
Do you know what's funny?
What?
Before we started this podcast, we were thinking about how we could do this podcast the way that we always do, which is that we record the interview, and then after you guys have all left, we record the first segment and the third segment.
Yeah.
But we chose the more creative route.
We chose something different.
We did it.
Did you feel forced to do that, or was this?
I did. Tyler.
We did pressure.
Did you see Tyler? Yeah. Tyler grabbed me by the collar and threw me up against the wall and said, "I'm going to be on this podcast."
I know these T-shirts that were on your wall are now on the ground.
We can't edit anything.
Excellent. Thanks, Josey.
That is
Thanks,
great.
Greg.
All right. So normally we'd take a break and then I'd play some bumper music before we go to our interview. So
Let's do it.
So pretend that we just had like a nice commercial break there. Oh, Josey.
Oh, Greg.
We have a tendency here on this podcast to book guests who are have a personality to them, right? Mm-hmm. Sadly, the only person who is available for this podcast and here to interview with us is Tyler Criss. And I know he's got some questions teed up.
Yes.
But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome in the Lord of the Interwebs. It's John Warder. Yay!
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Do you live online? How online would you say you are?
On the line?
Gosh, I do not live online. No.
Do you think you're more online than the average person?
I don't think so, because I think that there's a lot of people that are younger than me, and there's a lot of young people.
There are.
That boost up that average. So I think I'm maybe above average to like people that are around my age. Mm-hmm. But I think more and more people are getting online.
All right. So, John Warder.
Yes, sir.
We will start this interview as we always do by asking about your RYLA story, about how in the heck you ended up at a place like this doing a podcast with a bunch of jackals like us.
No, I mean, well, first of all, it's super cool that y'all are doing this podcast. It's awesome, like seeing how much RYLA continues to develop, and this is another one of those examples. My RYLA story, 2008. My dad was part of the Rotary Club, and was like, "Yo, you should be part of this camp." I was like, "Dad, I don't want to go," just because my summers were filled with summer camps. I love summer camps. Live for summer camps, church camp, band camp. Yeah, I did go to band camps, theater camps, all that sort of stuff. And I just like, this is another excuse just to like get out of the house, and I don't necessarily want to do this. But thankfully, I had a friend that went the year before me and told me a few things. The only thing I really actually remember him telling me was about the cars. About like, that's the first thing that happens is you get pulled out of the car. I was like, all right, well, if this guy says it's fun, I'll check it out. And I ended up going, and it was the best decision I've ever made. It's just, it really is, and I'm so thankful that my dad wanted me to be part of it. And yeah, it's just absolutely a part of my everyday life, and I've been coming back every year since.
Why? Like, what is it about the program, do you think, that keeps you coming back?
I mean, I think that it's rooted in a lot of really good ideas, and it's also rooted in letting people bring on new ideas, like this right here. And I think also number one is for sure the people, and it really is amazing just how many people continue to come back, whether it's actually at camp or just be involved in some way. I think that's one of my favorite parts, is just getting to see all the people that are involved in it. What are they doing in their lives? And then also getting to kind of like bring in a whole new crew of people to keep this thing growing. So it's for sure the people.
So you said something in your RYLA story that you use things from RYLA every day.
Mm-hmm.
So what are one or two tools that you use from RYLA every day?
I think how I collaborate with people. So, I chose the word creativity because I ended up making a lot of things, and that's, so you end up like wanting to bounce ideas off other people. And I think one of the things you learn at RYLA is how to work in a group, and, your ideas aren't always going to be the right ideas. And there's a lot of times where you can hear a new, fresh perspective. And so I think that's one thing I always welcome, like other people's ideas. I always welcome people's opinions, because I think that there's always a different perspective, different point of view that I'm not always catching, and it always helps develop the idea. So that's for sure one of them, the collaboration aspect. And then, another part of it is it really is like ingrained in a lot of parts of my life. Like I work with Sly, who's longtime camper or camp staff member. He and I are working on Donate and Dare, which is a fun little project that we're doing to raise money for charity. Sometimes I get freelance work with Mish. She has her own production company, so those are just two examples right there, but very much real examples that are part of my everyday life that help me put food on my table and all that sort of stuff. So it's it's really become a big, huge part of my life.
So why don't you tell people what you do? Like, we've kind of glossed over that. I think we've kind of assumed that, you're probably, aside from Dana, probably the number 2 celebrity at RYLA. So why don't you tell people what it is that you do? Everyone's nodding. I know it's audio media. Exactly.
I'm trying to think if that would push over if Dana would be number 2. But
it's Dana 1.
He's the world's greatest.
It's Dana 1, right?
The world's greatest.
We're all fighting for second. But
hey, Trevor, you got a blue check mark on Twitter, dude.
Why don't you tell me? This isn't about me. Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me what you do?
Is it meaningless? Let's see. Actually, there was. So this is a side note, but there was like a mural in Los Angeles where they would only let people with blue check marks go take a photo and like a selfie in front of if they had. So in LA, it means something, Greg. So you should maybe move to LA.
Okay,
you take a picture in front of a mural.
I'm gonna leave. Just give a thumbs up. Do you know how easy it is to get verified? All you have to do is work at like a place that like.
I work at a place. Thank you.
No, I'm saying like work. Seriously, if you work in like media and then like you say, hey, by the way, I'm a reporter, even though I'm not a reporter, then they'll verify you.
That's pretty cool.
It's a lot. It means nothing.
So you reached out. You reached out to.
I applied.
That's
I applied.
Cool.
And I was verified. So anyway. Tell me about what you do.
What do I do? I don't know. I like to make things. I like to make videos. So I am a videographer, editor, creative producer. Right now, what's paying my bills is freelance work. So I end up working with different small little productions, helping out with like nonprofits and like creating promotional videos for them. I've gotten to do some real estate videos, so that's kind of been a great avenue that I get to do, where it's like really forcing me to learn about my equipment and just how to work with new people. Freelance is something that I was always scared of doing, and I started doing it in March of 2019. So that's the world that I'm in right now. I always make videos, but on the side, the thing that I really love to do is making YouTube videos for fun, stupid dance videos on Instagram, and that doesn't pay me anything, but it's a fun exercise. It's a fun activity for me to try things out. So I would say that I'm just a content creator that occasionally gets paid.
Content creator. That's it.
I like that.
I like that word. Phrase.
Do you mentioned that like you're kind of venturing off and doing your own thing now, kind of, as a freelancer. Can you take us through that decision? Because that's a big leap.
Oh man, yeah, it was, and I lived in Los Angeles for 5.5 years, and I wanted to go out there to make videos. I wanted to go out there to work in comedy, and I got to do that. I got to work for a talent agency, and was an assistant over there in the comedy department for stand-up comedians. So I got to learn a lot about business and just kind of how the industry works, and really how that's like the machine that runs everything. Then I got to move over to work also in the production side over at Funny or Die. Then got laid off. What up, yo? Laid off club. It was kind of fun.
That doesn't sound like fun. I'm going to be honest.
It was not fun.
I've never been laid off, so
it wasn't fun. Of course, it wasn't fun, and I also thought I was at my dream job, right? And they ended up not working out, and like 2/3 of the company got taken out. But I learned a lot, and because that situation happened, it brought me to, I think, like the most important job I've had in my career, which is getting to work at Mythical Entertainment, which was Rhett and Link's company. They're these two YouTubers that had a show called Good Mythical Morning, and I always call them like the Lewis and Clark of YouTube, because they really kind of paved the way for what YouTube is now. Like, you see taste test videos, like those guys started that. Mm-hmm. Like eating gross foods, those guys started that. Like all these, even epic rap battles, those guys started that. So I got to work for those two dudes, and I was at the very bottom of the barrel of that company. I was just the guy that was uploading videos, but I knew that I could edit videos, and I told them that's one of the things I could do. And that eventually gave me a couple opportunities to mess around and do some editing. One opportunity came after another, and I ended up getting to be in charge of their social media department and directing talent and creating and working with producers and other editors to make stuff that goes on all of our social channels. And so that was a lot of great experience. And sometimes I had imposter syndrome because I didn't feel like I completely knew all of my equipment. But I eventually decided, this was a great run, a great ride, and I got to meet so many people. But now I really want to try to force myself to learn. And the best way to do that is just jump off and go into the deep end. So I left California. I moved in with my parents over in the Metroplex, and I started got my own LLC, and have just kind of been working with clients. And finally, this past Black Friday, was able to pay every dollar that I earned, or not every dollar, but every dollar that I used to buy new equipment was earned from these new gigs. So it's been a huge learning experience for me, and I love it. And so it was just a big challenge. I did it because I wanted to challenge myself in a new way, because I was starting to feel stale, which is interesting because I was working at a company that was making viral content pretty much every day. Like, how could you ever feel stale at a place like that? But I was, and I wanted a new challenge. So I did. That's what I did.
It's that idea of being stale, and you chose your word creativity. Why did... the stale has nothing to do with it. Why did you choose that word?
I chose it because I just think it's very ingrained in my life and what I do. And I think what I really enjoy about getting to make videos and whatnot is hopefully it's an opportunity to show other people how easy it is to try things, to experiment. And because I think what I was trying to get at a little bit earlier about how it's very much at the root of all of us. We are all constantly creating something. Whether you know it or not, you're doing it. And we all have the capability to create more. And so I really like that word because I think it's an encouraging word. I think it's a word that inspires people. Thinking out of the box, people will say that's creative thinking, and a lot of times that's what inspires a lot of people in the workplace or in your cabin at camp or in your family. These creativity, I think, like I said, inspires people and kind of gets people excited to try something new, to do something and get after it. So. Yeah.
We want to give you an opportunity, as we do with all of our guests, to plug something.
Oh, sorry. Was I talking too long, Greg?
No.
Oh, okay.
Why would you?
I don't know. I thought I was maybe talking. It was a hard stop.
No, we're playing you off. There's soft classical music starts fading up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
No, we want to give you an opportunity to plug something.
Sure.
Is there something that you're passionate about? Something that you're really into at the moment that you want to tell people about?
So I knew that you guys were going to ask this question because I've listened to a few episods.
Yes. You're the guy. You're the listener. We found you.
You guys got a few.
We have two.
So I thought I wanted to think about it. I've come down to three things. They'll be
perfect.
Quick. They'll be quick.
No, why? It's a podcast.
Well, so we're talking about creativity. So if you're interested in creativity and creative thinking, I would recommend a book. I do not read that often, but whenever I do, I really get into it. And this book called Creative Quest by Questlove. He's the drummer in Jimmy Fallon's band,
Roots.
The Tonight Show and The Roots. So I would definitely check out Creative Quest. He ends up like interviewing and talking to a lot of other people, like even chefs and other musicians and just different people that create a lot of different things and understanding their process. And there's a lot of things that you can relate to yourself, and just, if you're stuck on an idea at work, however mundane you think whatever it is you're doing, there's a creative way to get out of that or to spice things up. So I would definitely recommend that book. A movie I would recommend, which I think is extremely creative, and I was absolutely moved by, was the film 1917, just nominated for Best Picture and Cinematography, which is for good reason, because has anybody in here seen this movie?
I have not.
No.
Okay, run and see it, please, and see it in a movie theater, because it is essentially...
This is Sam Mendes, right?
Yes,
Okay.
And it's essentially one shot. They filmed a, 2-hour movie in essentially one shot. There are a few cuts that happen, but it doesn't feel like it, and that's what's insane, is just imagining like how much collaboration had to be perfect, and how much like they basically dug out trenches that were 1.5 miles long so they could do these one full shots.
Jeez.
And when they say action, and like you're watching this film and you're like, what the heck, like it's been 7 minutes and we're still on this same camera angle, so you really feel in the situation with these two soldiers that we're following. So I would definitely watch that with that perspective. And then finally, I have to plug what I'm doing for fun, and it's my YouTube channel. So check it out, John Warder. I'm trying to do a weekly video every Wednesday. Each week has kind of each week of the month has a reoccurring theme, and I'm just trying to be encouraging and goof around a little bit on there. So it'd be awesome if you checked it out.
Tyler, do you have any questions for our guests?
Yeah, I did have one trivia question for John.
Oh, a trivia
okay.
question. Here we go.
John, do you happen to know who the Dave Campbell's Texas Football High School Player of the Year is for 2001?
Yeah, actually, let me think about that. Mm-hmm. I'm looking around over here. Oh, perfect, right in my pocket. I just so happen to have the Player of the Year Class 5A Vincent Young Quarterback Award.
Because you're a Texas guy, right?
I'm a Texas guy.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, though? I wasn't a Texas guy whenever Vince Young won the national championship. I was a Red Raider, Texas Tech.
All right. Wreck 'em.
But I'm now a Vince Young guy.
So yeah, we were before we came on the air. We were here at my offices, which is where we record. To pull back the curtain completely on this podcast, we have Vince Young's 2001 Player of the Year trophy from his days at Houston Madison. So I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Well, first of all, I want to plug one more thing of yours, which is your Instagram is A1.
Thanks, man.
It's an excellent Instagram.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've only ever said that about one other Rylarian, and it was Whiteman.
Oh, she has a fun one. Her
Whiteman's-
Instagram stories are hilarious.
Whiteman's-
when she goes at it, she's great.
You're a close second. I mean,
I'll take it.
Whiteman's kind of the queen of Instagram.
She is
but
queen,
you are-
and she's also kind of queen of Twitter, I would say.
Yeah.
She's cracking me up on there.
She's got some.
Like I always see her tweets, and I just can't always like them, but like I like them.
No, she's
you know
got
what
some.
I mean?
She's got some heat.
They're funny.
She's got some heat on Twitter. Okay, but your Twitch stream.
Oh yeah.
Where you God, what's the name of your show? Is Didn't Come Here to Make Friends or something? Or?
No. That's another one.
That's another one.
No, it's called Y-Twag. You thought this was a game?
You thought this was a game. Yes. You thought this was a game. Where you run back old Survivor episodes.
Yeah.
And comment on them. I have spent an embarrassing amount of time watching you watch Survivor.
I would see you in the comments every now and then. It meant a lot to see you show up on there, man.
Look, man, it's whose idea was that? That was.
You know, I was the one that got Mark into Survivor, and so we just started like talking. Mark was my old roommate in Los Angeles, and we just would watch Survivor and just have these amazing philosophical discussions, as one does when you watch Survivor. And so I was just like, man, we really should just like consider doing a live stream of this, because we're gonna watch Survivor anyways, and just have these great discussions, and like let's share that with some other people. So it was a joint idea.
Well, it's excellent. I would recommend that to anybody. Does anybody else have any questions for John Warder?
I have one.
Oh,
Okay.
What's the story behind your, I'll call it for lack of an understanding, your digital signature? Like that you put on all your videos at the very end.
Wow, the warder,
I guess two-parter. The warder and the audio. Isn't there like an audio with it?
Yeah, so the little signature, a film by Warder. I actually made that signature when I was unemployed, when I got laid off from Funny or Die, because I was just like, really, I was depressed, and so I was like, I need to make something, and so I made like this bike video where I biked from my house to Venice Beach, and then I wanted to make a little logo, so I just drew Warder in an interesting graffiti-like way, and so I liked it, and I've just kept it in all my stuff. And then the bleh is, it's bleh, and I put at the end of all my videos, and that was just like a blooper that I did in my one of my New York vlogs. At the very end, I was stumbling over my words, and I just said bleh, and I thought it was funny and made fun of myself, and now I do it every video.
Ladies and gentlemen, the master of bleh. It's John Warder. Yay!
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now pretend there's a commercial here. Okay, we're back. John Warder, Tyler Criss still joining me and Josey us here on the RYLACast, and it's my job to bring this thing home.
Lee, give us
put a little bow on it.
Something to leave you with.
Okay. So we were talking about creativity, right? Let's talk about what stifles creativity. Let's talk about creativity killers, okay? Because I think there's a number of things that you could do, which is like, I think obvious ones, like if you don't listen, that's going to really stifle creativity, right? If you are playing it safe, right, and you're saying, I'm not going to go out on that limb, that's going to stifle the creativity. But when I was thinking about this, the number one thing that I think kills creativity is micromanaging. Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
If you've ever been micromanaged, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Which is, if you are working on a project, all you're doing, like you will. I feel like your room, or like ideas fill up whatever the size of the room is. It's like a little gaseous. You know what I mean? Ideas are gaseous, and if you constrict that, then all that's going to do is limit the amount of ideas and limit the amount of creativity. And the best way to constrict it is by going up and saying, "Hey, so what you working on there? Oh, I don't know if I like that." When I with my gig, we work in a relatively creative space. We try to keep things pretty free and easy. And as I've kind of grown into a leadership role, the number one thing I've tried to remember is to just let people go, and then at the end of it, now we can corral it. You know what I mean? Because I feel like with creativity, once you constrict it, once you kind of tighten the stranglehold, you can't untighten it. You can't be like, no, be creative, no, be creative. It's a lot it's a lot easier to just have way too many ideas and be like, all right, we got all these ideas. Yeah. Let's sift through these, as opposed to, oh no, we need these one or two. Let's limit this to one or two ideas. I feel like micromanaging was the first thing I thought of as far as the opposite of creativity.
You got to be a free range chicken.
You got to be a free range chicken. Get rid of those cages.
Get rid of them, because guess what? Chickens still come home at the end of the day. They got to go to their little coop because they're blind at night.
Is that true?
That's actually true. My aunt and uncle have a farm.
I feel like...
But the other thing I'll say to that, too, is don't, micromanaging your right from somebody else, but also micromanaging yourself. Trying to be perfect. Perfection is a way to kill creativity.
Sure. Because if you're saying, no, I've got to make sure I get this right. I've got to make sure I get this right. Like when you're doing a video, how many of the best videos and the best takes you've done are when you felt like you messed up something at the beginning and be like, I'm just going to finish out the take and see how it
many
works
of them.
Out, right?
So many of them.
That's what ends up being the best stuff. And that's why these podcasts, that 100% true, we just turn on the recorder and we go. And it's like I think I've made the joke that I'll edit something out, and I've never edited anything out of this podcast.
Well, because that's real, and I think that's where the magic happens, is whenever you don't restrain yourself, and that's where those fun ideas and jokes come into play.
So there you go. Yeah. That's something to leave you with.
Well, thank you,
that is our creativity episode with John Warder.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tyler, thanks for being our third host. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the people? Your podcast is coming up next. Not to spoil it for a couple of weeks whenever yours comes up, but...
that was a really creative podcast. I was happy to be a part of it. John, you're an awesome guest. Great interview.
Oh.
To match that.
They are fist bumping right now. Wow. What
That's
a
my
moment.
brother
we got
over
to
there.
witness.
What a moment.
What a moment we got to witness.
My RDC brother.
That's going to do it for this episode of the RYLAcast. Please rate, subscribe, and tell your friends to listen to it. And here with an antiquated way to tell people how to subscribe to the podcast is Josey.
Yes, well, go ahead and take your bicycle and ride around and leave little, do you remember Triscuits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Triscuits are great.
They are great. I haven't had them in a long time. I say remember, like they're on the store shelves. But go ahead and write like one letter per Triscuit telling people.
Spell out RYLAcast.
Spell out RYLAcast.
Thank you. That's a very creative way
love
to do it.
Triscuits.
Triscuits are very
Thank
good.
you.
Let's go get some Triscuits. Josie, thanks for your courage.
Thanks, Greg.
See you next time on the RYLAcast.